By the way, congratulations on the upcoming 70th anniversary of the Family Handyman, without the anymore. I mean, it's now Family Handyman.
Thank you.
I'm working on a book that's called The Magazines and I, and about all the magazines that were published in the United States in March 1953, the month I was born. And among them is the 11th edition
I love it. Thank you.
of the Family Handyman, in which it tells you if you live in a house, you need this magazine.
That's still true.
70 years later, is it still true, and why?
Absolutely. So I believe it is still true. I think that, you know, for a lot of people, their home is their largest investment. And I think that what we've seen over the last 8 months during this pandemic is that whether people have lost investments in the stock market, or spouses losing a job or income, people are really looking back at their home as something that they need to take care of and improve, and as a way to gain potential wealth. I also believe that there's a lot of new homeowners and first-time homeowners buying homes. And, you know, we kind of are seeing a renaissance in home improvement, you know, because of things that are happening in parallel cultures, whether it's people that are relearning skills like cooking or baking, right? The idea of really being able to learn a skill that maybe wasn't handed down to you is where Family Handyman really has a place in that world, and to continue on as you grow your skills and your confidence to make that home your own.
And as you look forward, as you get ready to celebrate that 70th anniversary, in print, ink on paper, you're now, I mean, your online numbers, your digital numbers are like sky high. And so how are you balancing, like, okay, I'm going to put this in the magazine, but this is going to be for the digital, this is going to be the website. What's your thinking process of like what goes where?
Yeah, so as a brand, Family Handyman really strives to meet our consumers wherever they are, right? Some people love picking up that tactile experience of the ink on paper, like you said. And when we think about, you know, the lineups for the magazine, we really do a combination of what's happening in the world, right? What are people seeing? What's happening at new home showcases? Also, kind of what are those tried and true things that people either need to update their skills on or learn that new skill. And when I think about the website, you know, the user on the website is such a different journey than the magazine, right? We're delivering you the information in your mailbox or at the newsstand, whereas on the website, it's really this in the moment. And I think that when I think about the website content, you really have to think about that path that people would follow. You can't just have that one piece of information. You have to be able to answer that question of what's next and what else do they need to know, and then what comes after that. And maybe it sends you on a whole completely different journey, but really being able to think holistically about a consumer's journey on our website is something that is really important to me. Whereas in the magazine, we spend, you know, we put out 8 issues a year, and we're really focused on delivering high quality, in-depth, you know, I've got editors that could work on a project for 2 or 3 months. We wrapped up a project before, earlier this year, we built out we didn't build out, we remodeled a 1971 camper, or I'm sorry, 1971 camper. And it took us, I think, almost 6 months, right? So there was this process that we took the readers on in the pages of the magazine. Of course, that ended up online, but online, that process turned into even a bigger thing, because we asked the question of what's next, and then what else, and what happens after that.
So, I mean, as I look at the cover from the 1953, where you are decorating your fireplace, how to add a flush wall, how to have an outdoor breakfast nook indoors, and 7 prize-winning ideas for stair improvements and repair. I mean, are those timeless articles? I mean, can I go back to your archives and say, you know, I need to do that? And
well, I love that you asked that. I think one of the beauties of our magazines, you know, started in the 1950s, is that I really believe mid-century modern design is having its heyday, right? It's come back. People still like that looks. People still like that feel. we still get requests for projects that we published back then, people that want that look again. And you brought up the fireplace. The fireplace was actually on our first issue as well. It was the featured project on the first issue, winter of 1951. And as you know, we've got the anniversary issue coming up. And one of the projects that we featured in, or are going to feature in that issue, is how to remodel a fireplace. People are moving into homes that have fireplaces as the central focal point in their rooms. And rather than just painting it or kind of glossing it over, we really go in depth and with a nod back to our first issue of how to redo a fireplace with, you know, it's beautiful tile now as opposed to the brick. But it's really, you know, we realized that people didn't just all of a sudden get rid of their homes with these old features and move forward. People still want the benefit. You mentioned the breakfast nook. Really, what is the benefit? I've got a million projects on my honey-do list, but how do I choose the one that benefits me the most? How do I look at it and say, yes, the result of this is going to make my life easier, better, whatever that benefit is really what drives us. And some of those older projects, I think are still timeless. You know, I'll admit there are some projects. One of my favorite things to do is go back through the archives. We still have all of the printed magazines all the way back to the beginning. And I've gone through all of them, and I'm a little bit of a nerd like that. I love looking at the archives. And you know, there was some moments in the past where we might have stumbled, where we maybe recommend people doing a project. You know, one of our projects in the anniversary issue is doing a 3D accent wall, right? So making kind of some symmetrical patterns on the wall to make the wall unique and pop. And it was inspired by a project that we did in the 60s, I believe, where we encourage people to cut styrofoam and glue it to their walls. So we would never recommend that now, but it's, you know, it's interesting to go back and look what was on trend or in vogue and look at where we are now. And some of those things did hold up, others did not. But I think that's just home ownership in general.
Yeah, and you know, needless to say, when I see here that how to add a fireplace for less than $100 back in the 50s. Good luck with that now.
Oh, so that's one of my favorite parts about the archives is going back and looking at the old advertisements, because at one point we were advertising a complete home, you know, a full home delivered for like $4,000. And I don't think that holds up today.
So tell me, I mean, as you know, in this day and age where we are bombarded by information, the first thing that people say, oh, I mean, just Google it or go to YouTube to find how to do this or how to fix that. What is different than going to Google or YouTube if I go to Family Handyman? And how can you send this message to the people who are actually interested in being a handy person?
Sure. Well, I believe that the days of anonymous content are coming to an end. It was, you know, we kind of saw this uprising of content that was written by some voice in the sky that was telling people what to do, that cook this for dinner tonight because the internet told me to, right? People are looking to voices and brands that they trust, because to your point, I can go to YouTube and I can spend an hour looking at how to solve my problem and get 5 different answers for how to fix a running toilet. Family Handyman is an established brand that's been telling people how to do the things the right way for 70 years. And I think that, you know, in these days of anonymous content, a voice that is both authoritative, trustworthy, and comes to you with a mentoring tone, as opposed to this almighty voice that's telling you that this is what you need to do to your house, is really where I believe Family Handyman stands apart from what I would call kind of that anonymous content. Sure, there's people creating it, but we're intentionally building a resource to be able to mentor and guide homeowners, and that they can look to us that if we help them with one problem, likely we have the answer to their next problem as well.
So let's look. I know only God or a fool can tell you the future, but let's look like a year or 2 years. You are getting ready to celebrate your diamond anniversary, your 75th anniversary. What would you tell me that during this celebration time that Family Handyman could or have accomplished?
I think that one thing that is really important for us to keep our eyes on is to continue to evolve with what I'll call the modern homeowner, to really be able to make sure that we understand their relationship with their homes and what they want. I think that to your point, it would be a fool's mission to just go on autopilot and assume that what homeowners want today is the same thing that they'd want in 5 years. And I think that that's really what's kept Family Handyman relevant, is that we do research, we talk to homeowners, we are homeowners. We realize that what I wanted 10 years ago is different than what I want today for various reasons. And really being able to understand the makeup of what homeownership looks like in this country, I think is going to be crucial to where we are in 5 years, to make sure that we understand diversity, to make sure that we understand trends, to make sure that we understand the tried and true, what's important, what's not. You know, one of my favorite things to ask when we see a new product, for example, is the question, is it really a thing? Or do they just want it to be a thing, right? If we say that this is the thing that you should use in your home, is it really? Like, let's do that work. And I think that there's a lot of that holds true when I think about where we'll be in 5 years or 10 years or 70 years, is that we really have to ask ourselves, is this a thing? Does this belong in people's homes? And can we feel good about understanding and help other people understand it?
And as a journalist, I mean, as I told you, I'm looking at all these magazines of March 1953. And a lot of magazines used to have "the" in front of the name, the Family Handyman. You're no longer the Family Handyman, you are the Family Handyman. Why are we dropping those "the" from the name?
I think it's a little bit more contemporary. I think that, as we've evolved our voice, as I mentioned, I strive to have my editors take a mentoring tone, right? That we're not the only thing in the world. We realize that people aren't living in a bubble, right? They're consuming other things. And just to be more contemporary and be that partner that can join them on that journey, as opposed to being the almighty the.
So, still looking ahead, I mean, can you envision a day where there will be no ink on paper Family Handyman, that we are 100% digital, or you think that the centennial anniversary will still be looking at the archives, ink on paper, and at the magazine issues?
Well, I think that the magazine is an incredibly important part of our business today, as it was 70 years ago. We're not letting up our foot on the gas on ink on paper. I think the thing that is really the nuance there is really about what I talked about earlier with the consumer, and making sure that we can meet them wherever they choose to consume. And that, we've seen this in the last decade, the last 2 decades, the evolution of social media, the growth, the importance of websites, the importance of video, the importance of newsletters. That's all grown. And so I think that just like we have to understand the consumer, we also have to understand how they choose to consume. And so while we're not letting our foot off the gas on ink and paper right now, I think that we have to make sure that we're following people where they choose to go, and in some cases lead them.
So Nick, if I give you a magic wand and you strike that ink on paper or the website, and the human being comes out, who will that Family Handyman human being? Can you describe that person that will go to other people's homes and help them and give them advice? Who's that Family Handyman?
Sure, absolutely. That Family Handyman has evolved over time. I think it's, if you look at our website numbers, let's say the last 6 months, we've seen females outnumber their male counterparts visiting our website, right? So 51% of the traffic to our site is a woman, which is amazing. We've also seen it get younger. Millennials have grown over the last year, visitors to our site, and as well readers of our magazine. We've seen an increase in millennial and female readership. And so if I were to strike the paper and kind of paint you a picture of what this person looks like, I see them being the person that talks about the project that they've got going on when they go out and get their mail out of the mailbox with their neighbor. I see them being the person that's not afraid to chime in when someone's asking them, maybe on their social media, on their Facebook page, how do I do this? They're confident, or at least they can understand enough to explain to someone where to get the information. I see this as we've got a large audience that I believe consume our content for entertainment, right? Where home improvement is their hobby, that they just want to know more. They want more knowledge. They want to understand how things work. I see lots of new homeowners, as I mentioned. We get letters all the time from people that bought their first home and got a subscription to the magazine from maybe their parents, and they use it as kind of their Bible now. I see the web visitor is really dynamic. We're seeing, to your point, all-time site traffic to our site. People are really consuming things that are both in the moment, right? They have an immediate need. How do I stop this thing from happening? My toilet's overflown. There's a stinky smell in my laundry room, right? They need an answer right now, but we're also seeing these kind of bigger projects where I'm planning on redoing a deck, or I want to be able to build a shed, or how do I winterize my grill, right? And that's where we're really popping in and becoming relevant in their lives, because we help them stop the toilet from running, and now we're going to help them redo their deck. So it's a dynamic, really dynamic person that consumes Family Handyman.
And before I ask you if there's anything I failed to ask you, how did the job environment, publishing during a pandemic, we've been locked down since March in one way or the other. How did that change your operation of magazine publishing?
Well, I think the biggest challenge for me personally was in the routing of pages of the magazine. I loved to get my hands on the paper that had everyone else's markups on them and go and pass it off to the next person. I loved that process. I believe that that's one of the only things that's really changed. We have a really strong culture at Family Handyman. We've got a really collaborative and creative environment. We've been using technology like this to be able to communicate daily, sometimes hourly, right, with what's happening. We still do pinups. We still do magazine lineups where we have all the right people in the room. We still do the routing. It's a little bit different, right? Different putting a virtual Post-it on a PDF, but it's still happening. And it really hasn't slowed us down. I think one of the biggest challenges has been, we're based in Minnesota, is where the Family Handyman is headquartered, and it's about to get cold here. And in the cold months, we often travel to warmer climates to be able to work on projects for next year's magazines. And we don't see that happening this year. So we've really had to get creative with how we think about what that looks like and how to do it. And I'm happy to say that I think we're succeeding really well in doing that, which is great.
Excellent. And before I ask you my typical final questions, anything else I failed to ask you? Anything else you would like to add about?
I really think that this idea of empowering and mentoring homeowners is going to continue to gain us an invitation into their homes, and going to continue to gain us that strength as a brand, as the go-to resource for home improvement. So I think that's just something I want to drive home.
Let's say COVID is behind us and the cold weather is behind us, and I come visit you one evening, unannounced. What do I catch Nick doing to rewind from a busy day at work?
So first you have to get past the dogs, because they wouldn't let you sneak up to the house. So that would be the first thing. After a long day of work, what you're going to find me doing is I enjoy reading. I enjoy music. One of my favorite things has been I've hooked up a 1970s record player in the living room and have it connected to my whole home sound system. And I've got two younger kids, and we sit and listen to albums. which is, I think, a really fun way, very similar to print, where you can be there in the moment with something that you can touch. And I think that's probably what you'd catch me doing. And I'd invite you in and we could sit and listen to some music together.
Excellent. And what keeps Nick up at night these days?
What keeps me up at night is making sure that we can stay ahead of what's next, that we don't put on the cruise control or the autopilot and assume that what people wanted yesterday is what they're going to want tomorrow. Really not losing sight of that, making sure that we understand people, that we understand homeowners, and that we understand what's valuable from the kind of the tried and true, as well as understanding trends so that we don't get stuck behind and get forgotten.
And last but not least, what makes you tick and click these days?
Tick and click. Let's see, what makes me tick and click? I love cooking outdoors. That's really, we've brought that back into Family Handyman. It was always a part of it, was grilling and that. And I would say that my passion for that has really, it's one of my favorite hobbies, is cooking, whether it's over a smoker or a grill or whatever. That makes me, I love that. So.
Wow. Excellent. It has been really great chatting with you, and congratulations on the upcoming 70th anniversary. And